So you're getting ready to take your next big trip. What are some of the things that you need to think about or do other than packing? So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that today. Hi, I'm Nadia. I am a solo traveling, globe-trotting digital nomad who's exploring the world while on a career break. I talk to Gen X and Xennial women, Black women in particular, about my experiences on the road and offer some tips and pointers and insights about my travels in hopes that it will help you and help you have a great experience on the road for yourself. So let's get into it. So today we're talking about readiness. So what are some of those things that I do to help ensure that I have an easy, smooth journey or transition into my next destination? So I've broken today's video up into 3 pieces. The first piece is related to things to do before you leave. The second is things you do while you're waiting for your baggage. And the third is what you do as soon as you get to your accommodation. These are suggestions for some of the things that I do to help ensure that my trip goes smoothly. So the first thing, especially if you are a US citizen or national, I would recommend that you enroll in the STEP program. And STEP is an acronym for the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program. It's an initiative offered by the State Department. And what it does is basically enrolls you with your local embassy or consulate office where you're going to be headed. So the information that they capture, you can provide your flight information, you can provide the address of your accommodation, your host name, just some details. So the way the information is utilized is, especially if there is an emergency, and given recent events in the world, that's certainly something to be mindful of. The STEP program has your name and knows where to find you. Yes, it may seem a little big brotherish, but quite frankly, it helps put your mother at ease. It gives you some peace of mind. And 3, in the event of an emergency, someone is aware that you're in country and where your accommodation is. So take a look at the STEP program. I enroll in or I sign or update my record every time I go into a new country, and it just gives me peace of mind. It's kind of something I do as soon as I have figured out my flight and my accommodation. The second thing is, especially once I've done STEP, I send that same information to my key contacts. So that might be parents, it could be a boyfriend or girlfriend, it could be your best friend, whoever it is that needs to know where you are. Especially as a solo traveler, it's really important that at least somebody that you know and trust has some information about where you are located. The third thing is my banks. I let them know where I'm going to be. Now, one of my credit card companies, you don't need to let them know, you don't need to send them notification for travel, but sometimes it just makes it so much easier. It reduces the likelihood of you getting your account flagged for fraud, which opens an entire can of worms, or that a transaction is declined and you're not sure why. Be mindful. Some banks will have a time limit as to how long that flag will last. I've run into 30-day time limits. Some it's completely open-ended, or if you're going to be doing a lot of travel and will be in multiple locations, sometimes you may find that there is a set number of or a maximum number of countries that you can enter at any one update, but notifying your banks to avoid transaction issues, a flag, a decline, a fraudulent notification, or any of those things. So letting your bank know. The third thing is related to my phone. So I'll take a little bit of time to do some loose searching about SIM cards. And the SIM card is what helps you ensure that you have phone service in a particular country. So in my case, what I have often done is gotten a new SIM card for every country. There's some expense to that. It's the thing that I do that helps give me some peace of mind. I have found that sometimes being on the local network gives me access to information, or it's just easier to navigate certain places. So I'll look at some blogs. I may do some general tourism information research about the cell phone or SIM card options. Maybe they have a tourist cell, I keep saying cell, tourist SIM card plan or service plan, or other travelers have flagged pros and cons for different providers. One thing to note is that it's been my experience in multiple countries that the local service provider, I'll just use Turkey as an example, Turkcell, may provide more reliable service, especially if you're going to be in rural locations, as opposed to some of the more behemoth providers that are all over the world. So I think Vodafone is an example of a behemoth that's in multiple countries. So something to take into account. If you're in a place like the EU, or in the UK and going into the EU, you can sometimes utilize the same SIM card. So the card that I have right now, I actually purchased in England. However, I have been able to use it with ease in the Netherlands. So that's something. But when I was in Switzerland, I had a totally different type of cell phone plan, and it had a lot more hoops that I had to deal with activating that plan. So, definitely take some time to figure out what works best for you. When it comes to the SIM card, you know, I find that I probably would stick with about a 4 to 6 gig option, because I'm often activating Wi-Fi when I'm on the go. But at any rate, the main point is take a look at what your SIM card options are and have some awareness as to who the carriers are that you need to pay attention to and consider purchasing a plan from. But I'll do some cursory research around SIM cards. The next thing I do is Purge. So I'm traveling pretty light. I have one large bag, I have a backpack, and I have a purse. And I've been using that for the past 8 months. And I will regularly get rid of stuff. So sometimes things get worn out. Sometimes I'm just sick of wearing it. Sometimes things have spills on them and they need to be replaced. But I go through what I have in order to determine what can be left behind, particularly because baggage weight matters and you may incur additional fees the more your bag weighs beyond the limit. And the limits do vary from one airline to another. So something to take into account. Now, this is usually something I do right before I'm supposed to leave, like the night before, is I charge and make sure things are downloaded. So that means that my power bank is fully charged. I have a full charge on my laptop and my iPad or whatever devices need a charge, my camera, as well as downloading anything that I may want to access on the flight. Movies, music, documents, whatever it is that I may want to get to, so that it's at the ready. I have a full charge, and goodness knows we've all experienced flight delays and other wacky things that prompt us to want to have reading material or a movie or something else to pass the time. So charging and downloading. And then the next thing is I'll do some, again, cursory research around my transfer from the airport to my accommodation. And this can look very different from one country to the next. Sometimes people have a very regimented, or country will have or city will have a very regimented, regulated taxi cab system where they're clearly noted. You should only go to these authorized drivers, and some have a little bit more of a grassroots model. You may also want to consider Uber or Lyft if they have that in the community. So take a few minutes to at least get a sense for what the transit options are. And if you're staying in an Airbnb or you're house sitting or doing something like that, your host can often offer some great information. And one time I even had a host who was able to arrange and schedule transfer for me. So I walked out the airport and someone was there with my name on a clipboard, and I was ready to go. But other times I'll use public transportation. A lot of it just depends on where I am and what's readily available, which is why I take the time to understand what my options are. So you don't want to get to the airport at 11 or 12 o'clock at night because your flight got delayed and not have any idea as to what your options are for transit, especially if you're a female solo traveler. You want to have some sense about what the process is. And last but not least, before I go on my trips, I make sure I have snacks. So this could be nuts. It could be, I've seen people use beef jerky, some dried fruit, just some snacks to have on hand, some crackers, things of that sort to have on hand. One, because airport food it leaves much to be desired. Sometimes it's pricey and it doesn't always taste that great. And depending on the airline, they may nickel and dime you and practically charge you for air. So it's good to have your own snacks. And I've also found that sometimes when I land, I don't want to go to the grocery store. I may have to figure out how to order food, and having snacks in my bag will help tide me over. So those are the things that I do before I leave. So again, the list has the STEP program registration. I will notify my key contacts with my address and flight information. I'll notify my bank if I need to let them know that I'm going to be traveling and where. I'll take a quick look at my SIM card options. I will purge. I will charge and download. I will plan for my airport transfer, and I make sure that I have snacks on hand. So that's part one. Part two, so I've deplaned, I'm waiting for my baggage, and I'm trying to make good use of that time. So while I'm waiting for baggage, I usually will connect to the airport Wi-Fi, and while I'm connected, I will send a text to the key contacts, my Airbnb host if I need to. I will also take that time to download a Google map of the local area and ensure that I am able to utilize that map offline. That's particularly helpful if I am not yet connected to a cell phone network and I want to use the map to just monitor while I'm in transit to my accommodation from the airport, just to know where I'm going. And then this isn't a waiting for baggage thing, but before I leave the airport, I will often hit an ATM and get some cash, because you might be surprised at the number of places outside of the US that don't take credit cards. So you want to make sure you have cash on hand. Sometimes a taxi won't take a credit card, or you may need to pick up a bottle of water, and a small convenience store type of shop may not accept credit cards under a certain for purchases under a certain limit. So having a little bit of cash is useful. I have become a big fan of the Charles Schwab fee-free ATM card, and that's what I use to get my money. So that's perfect because I can go to the ATM as many times as I need to and don't have to worry about the international transaction fees and all of those other miscellaneous things that get charged to your account. And then lastly, if it's necessary, especially if I'm in a metro area, I may take a minute to get a transit card so that I already have a card if I'm going to take the bus the next day, or the tram, or the whatever the public transit situation is. So you can usually, especially if they have a station on site at the airport, which a lot of your major metros have a transit hub at the airport, I will purchase that before I leave the airport. So let me recap for you. My part two is that I send a text to say, hey, I'm here, to both family and friends or key contacts, as well as my host if necessary. I'll download a Google map. I will get some cash, and I will get a transit card. So there you go. Now for part three, this is once I have arrived at my accommodation. So I think all of us have gotten accustomed to this first action I take, which is wiping things down. I'll take sandy wipes and use those sandy wipes to wipe down light switches, the remote control surfaces, the counters, the buttons on the dishwasher, all of that, just for an extra layer of sanitizing of the space. The second thing I do is, again, I've only dropped my bags, I haven't unpacked yet. I will take a video of the space, just walking through. And this serves a dual purpose. One, it's a CYA, And two, it allows you to still, while you're videoing, look at things and whether or not they're working. You may find that a drawer pull is broken when you're, looking at the dresser, or a door doesn't close all the way, or whatever it is. That's particularly helpful when you can refer back to it and you can forward it on to a host. With Airbnb, I think it's not as well, at any rate, it's just useful to have in case you need to do some follow-ups or have someone do some additional cleaning or organization, or if something is broken. So it's a great thing to do. Just take a couple of minutes and walk through and videotape while you're doing that walkthrough. And then the next action I take, especially if it's during the day, I will go and pop out to go get an actual SIM card for my phone and apply the research that I did during step 2. So there you go. So those are my 3 kind of categories of activities. The first set is before I leave. The second is at the airport. And the third is once I have arrived at my accommodation. I hope you find this useful. I think what I found is that it sets me up for a great start to my trip. And I'm taking those few minutes before I leave and thinking through what I need to do when I get to a destination. It just makes everything so much easier. So if you found this useful, please like this video. Please subscribe to my channel if you want more tips and information like this. Don't forget to turn on your notifications. And I thank you for your time and appreciate you stopping by my channel. And I will see you next time.